Hi everybody, foXnoMad here, and today I want to help you travel smarter by sharing a recent episode of the foXnoMad podcast with you. My guest today is Teras Cassidy. He is the head of Geek Nation Tours, and we talk today all about some of the weirdest things that we travel with. And I'm sure you have some weird things that you travel with, so maybe let me know down in the comments below. But I hope you enjoyed this episode with Teras Cassidy.
So there we go. Hi, Teras. Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Nice to see you since I think the last time was definitely Las Vegas, Star Trek Las Vegas.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. That was a good time. Sorry, we didn't have much time to talk. It was loud in there when we were seeing each other at the bar. That was a good time, though.
Yeah, it was fun. It was nice to just be in a kind of a convention again. It had been a while.
Yeah, and just to hang out with people and to see that everybody was quite happy to be there, and yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah, it felt normal again as things started to feel sort of normal. And it's kind of funny. It kind of leads into the topic of what we're going to talk about today, which is traveling with weird things. Because I just imagine so many people going to Star Trek convention, costumes,
all their cosplay and everything. Yeah, for sure. It's funny because I was just going to say that one of my favorite times is actually at the beginning when you're just getting into the hotel and waiting in line to check in, because you see everybody's like boxes and huge luggage or whatever, and then somebody else is a cosplayer, but they're all like been doing it for years and they've got it all lined up in their one little tiny bag or whatever. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fun at the airport. You can kind of pick out, you're like, they're going to the convention, and then you do see huge things like filled up, and you're like, all right, that's probably a Klingon, or who knows what they're traveling around with.
Exactly.
I know that like for me, I travel with a bunch of things that are very unorthodox, mostly electronics and stuff that like a lot of people don't travel with, that is kind of weird or like inefficient to travel with, I think. They require some special care. But when you're traveling, are you traveling with, like, when you're running a tour, are you traveling with like game kits and models and miniatures and things like that?
Yeah, like all that stuff in the background. Like I'll be going to the UK this year on my Nottingham tour, and it's a miniatures based tour. So I'll be bringing my toy soldiers and bring them in my battle foam kit. So it's basically how can I say this? So there's various different levels of wargaming. Are you a wargamer? No, right?
No,
you're not a wargamer. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of different levels of wargaming. So sometimes you need a whole army. So that means like tanks and whole like squadrons of guys. And sometimes you don't. You need, it's more of a skirmish level, so you need like 10 miniatures. So depending on what you're bringing, depends on what you're playing, depends on what you're bringing, right? So for this particular miniature tour, we're playing skirmish games. So it would be like a couple of different games. So that would be like 2 different bands of 10 or so. So it's not huge for this particular tour, but the last time I did this tour, people were bringing full armies. And so basically there's several companies that you can go to buy these containers. And one in particular is called Battle Foam. I mention them because I know them. So basically I can probably grab one actually. Hang on, let me see.
Yep.
I'm gonna dig it out. I guess I could have done that earlier.
No worries.
So this is a piece of luggage, and then inside here. That side had a whole bunch of a place for your sheets of paper and characters and stuff. So the inside is just foam. So like that.
Yeah, like a little square, like almost like a honeycomb, but for miniatures, right?
And then there's the next one, and then this one you can actually. This is called pluck foam. So there's little squares, and you can make it any size you want.
And Yeah, and
One.
they're like, I was just gonna ask that, so you can make custom like
Yeah.
ones for each kit.
Yeah, so I did it this way because I have 3 miniatures that are specific shapes. So if they're going to rattle in there, they're just going to rattle like that. You see that?
Yeah. So
This one is designed. I've got a bigger one in there. I didn't want to pull out, but this one is designed to go on the plane because you could just put it, up above or whatever. So it's pretty big. This one would be for like a medium-sized army. And then I have another one in there that's like this big for a full army. And it's basically the same construction. There's a little bit of pockets and that kind of thing. And you can put a full army. So that would be like tanks and squadrons and everything. This is the one I'll be taking to England with me. And it's just tiny. So
yeah, it's like the size of a lunchbox. I don't know if people use
that's
lunchbox.
right. Yeah. So what I do with this one is that I actually put this on. I don't carry this on I put it in my checked luggage.
Mm-hmm.
So I put my miniatures in my checked luggage, and they're inside here, so they're pretty safe. So, do you have something like that for your cameras and stuff like that?
Yeah. So I kind of like use a kind of a weird setup. So like for me, I have like Swiss Gear makes a toiletry kit that's like really thick with a bunch of pockets, and I've kind of used that to put my camera and a couple other cameras and lenses. So I kind of use that, but I put everything in its separate sleeves. So I'm big on putting electronics in sleeves so that they're, just in case they don't get scratched up with each other and stuff like that. But yeah, because it's hard. Like I'm surprised that you can get something so specific with the miniatures, because like for camera gear, a lot of this stuff is hard to find something that's specific for your lens, for your, like like this microphone I'm talking on now, I carry it with me everywhere, and there's really no good case to bring it, or one that's not too bulky or anything like that.
Well, you could get these guys. You could buy that type of foam, and then pluck it to the shape that you want. You could literally make your own case if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think that's a better idea. I think you have a better idea. Yeah, that's. I'm gonna look into that because.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, and it's really. I've never had any damage or anything like that. Or, I sometimes bring a painting kit, like so really specific colors, and like a little bit of glue and maybe a little bit of an X-Acto blade and a paintbrush. Of course, that all goes in your checked luggage, right? Like the blade, obviously, but yeah, they don't even like you having like a little bit of glue or paint even on the plane. They're like, no, you don't do that. But have you ever had? Do you put yours in your check then, or do you carry that with you on the plane?
No, yeah. So technically anything with a battery has to come with you in the checked. So, which is a great excuse I use because my carry-on bag is pretty heavy, and a lot of airlines, like, it goes over their limit. But I always say, hey, all this stuff has batteries in it. So yeah, it's carry-on. So my carry-on is probably the same weight as all the stuff that is in my luggage. My luggage actually, it's just clothes. So there, there's not a lot of stuff. So yeah, I bring that with me, unfortunately. So it's a pretty heavy carry
case. Did you ever have problems going through any checkpoints? Like, what's this gizmo or anything like that?
So yeah, so like 2 recent things. One that always gets people is I have a Joby tripod. Actually, I have it right here. This thing, which I travel with, is usually in my bag. And I have other tripods and a microphone stand, which again is just a lot of stuff. This always gets, like, they get weirded out by this. So it's got these 3 flexible legs that can, but it's in a bag with other tripods. So I always find it weird that.
Interesting.
So that's the thing.
Do they think it's something like bad, or do they just don't know what it is?
They have no idea what it is. So they're like, what is this? What does it do? Is it, then they try to like extend the arms out like it could be a weapon. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to hit someone over the head, I would use like the tripod. I could just hit somebody with the
Yeah, that's
tripod.
right.
That one. And I was recently flying, and I was flying out of Baghdad. This was like over the last summer, and my GoPro. And for whatever reason, my GoPro could not pass security. Like they would not let me. Eventually I did, but I had to like turn it on, film them, show them that it was recording footage, show them the footage that had been recorded. And I have no
Wow.
idea why. It was just a GoPro. I was like, oh, this is pretty standard. I mean, there's nothing unusual
Yeah,
about
that's
it.
like,
So
yeah.
I asked them, is it why? And they were like, we just need you to show us how it works. And I was like, oh, okay. So that was the odd one, but
I, I have had people saying that you have to turn on your electronics before you go through. So would it be that type of thing, or is it they actually wanted to see it work?
yeah, no, they wanted me to record like a couple
Really?
seconds and then show them that it was recording. And
Wow, that's really interesting.
so I'm glad it had like a card in it, that it was ready to record. The batteries were working, like so it would have been
Right,
at one
right.
point I was like, I guess I'm just gonna leave this behind. I didn't think they would let me, but
Bring it. Oh my God. I mean, that's a good point. I think that you got to make sure that your electronics are all charged.
yeah.
Because if it doesn't turn on, they can just say nope. You don't get to have that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's now that you say that, yeah, because
yeah.
like a lot of times they do make you turn your laptop on. That was a thing for a while. I remember that. So, and then if your laptop's not charged, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You gotta go.
That's right. They're like, no, you're not bringing that up. You're like, oh, what am I gonna do? Yeah, for sure. It's really strange because I've been traveling with miniatures for years, like probably 10 years at least on the planes, right? And at first people are like looking at me like, what is that? What are you bringing these little toys on? And how old are you? That type of thing. And but what's really strange about it is that I now have um, people are like, oh, 40K, let's take a look. And they're looking at the paint jobs and everything like that. Like they know now, like it's like not even special or it's special only in the way that they know what it is. So they want to take a look at it and have fun with it. Like it's really a different world from even 10 years ago. So that's fun. I actually had a really cool experience. Uh, Last time I went to Lake Geneva to play Dungeons and Dragons at the Gygax home. And so I was going through customs, and the customs guy says, "Where are you going?" And I'm like, "Lake Geneva." And he goes, "What are you doing there?" And I explained everything that was going to. That's where Dungeons and Dragons was written, and Minnesota. This is what we're going to do. And he's like, "That is still cool. I run a system too." And we were going back and forth again. He was just like, "Yeah, it was funny how many geeks that you get going through customs." So it was. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, it's always interesting. And probably like security, I always imagine a lot of times get bored or, they see a lot of the same stuff. So when something unusual comes through, they're like, oh, hey, what's this? Maybe they're just even curious.
Yeah. Yeah, a buddy of mine actually had one experience. He had I think it was a cannon, but it was a molded cannon. So it was resin.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it went through the machine, the X-ray, it looked like there was a bubble inside. There's some bubbles inside, and they wanted to cut it in half because they're like, no, you have to show that there's no liquids inside this model. And he's like, it's resin. It's like, so he almost had to leave that behind, but he got it through, so that was good too. So. Yeah, it is an interesting time to travel since 9/11. Basically, it's been kind of crazy. So.
Yeah, I mean, before, like, I mean, you could go to the gate, like if you had family members, going somewhere. Like I remember, you could just go to the gate with them. That was kind of
that's right. Yeah.
And then the liquid. I think the liquid thing is the one that's a little bit the most difficult one still.
Yeah,
like it's just like kind of.
They don't like that at all. Yeah, you have to dump your. So that's that's one of the points. Is just be prepared to dump anything that you have. I think generally, those people are just trying to do their jobs. I'm sure you can get a guy that's power hungry or someone that's not nice or having a bad day or whatever. But for the most part, they just want to get you through.
Yep.
So it's just sometimes it's just best to just take the hit. If you just bought the bottle of water and it cost you $5, well, you're going through security, so just throw it in the garbage or just drink it.
So
just
do you
be prepared to do that?
Do you have a system as a frequent traveler? Like when you're like, okay, this is the thing I'm taking out of my carry-on in this order. Like, do you have a system? Yeah.
Yeah. To put everything out and then to bring it in and to put everything back in. It's still a lot of rigmarole. I mean, they still do this whole shoes and the belt and all that stuff. So it's a little bit of, but yeah, because you got to really, in some places in particular, you got to be really careful. I was actually in Egypt and I was really surprised at Cairo's airport. He was like, no, you don't want to make sure that you don't carry your valuables together in one bag. You want to separate them. And he was explaining, I'm like, but I'm just going through the airport. I'm not going anywhere. And he's like, no, even in the airport, you want to be really safe. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I'm not saying that Cairo is particularly, the airport's bad or anything like that, but he explained to me, he said, no, you want to do it this way. But yeah, for sure I have a system. I mean, you must too, because you have to take everything out if you're carrying with all your electronics.
Yeah. So sometimes, for the most part, like I can get away with everything that's in a separate like packing cube kind of thing with the electronics. So if it's a laptop that goes out, that's usually the first thing I take out, because that one is kind of easier. That's like one thing that I have to keep an eye on. And then one cube with the camera stuff, and then the microphone and other things that will go. I kind of send the more valuable stuff through. I try to time it so that when I go through, it's waiting for me there.
Yeah, exactly. You have to be really careful.
Because I don't want, some airports, like things can go missing, or I could just lose track of something, like, so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I think my wife lost her phone in Vegas. So at the Vegas airport. So and we're pretty sure someone clipped it. So you got to be careful. I don't know if you have to be super paranoid, but I think that a good solid awareness and expediting your that whole experience, trying to make sure that you time it right and get in right and to make sure you're not dawdling and get it back to your stuff right away. I think that that's prudent. I think that you do have to not get too paranoid about it too, because that also leads to you. It could lead to them thinking, okay, what's wrong with this person? Now we got to slow that person down, right? So it's definitely a balance for sure. But I take my laptop out or my iPad and I put my wallet. If I'm taking my wallet out, I put it in my shoe. My phone usually goes into my shoe or something like that, unless they need the electronics separate. So I do, all those little things. The belt comes off. I wear certain pants when I go to the airport. I've got a pair of pants that is really hard to get the belt off, and I didn't really realize that it was hard to get the belt off until I was at the airport. I'm like, I am never wearing these pants here again. A lot of pockets. I really like pockets. Cargo shorts are awesome for that. I'm not sure, they're not very stylish, but they're great for airport travel, because if it's hot, you can cool down, but you've also got a lot of places to put things. The problem with that is that I'm very particular on when I put things in my pockets, like where this goes here. So, but I think every once in a while, when you're in a rush, you put it in the opposite place or something like that. So then you get like, oh my God, where did I put that thing? It's supposed to be right here, but no, calm down. It's actually in your right hand. But I'm very particular about where I put stuff and everything. I always make sure that I have a shirt with a pocket on it, just because then I can put my headphones in there or something, or sunglasses or something, and I know where it goes. But I'm very, I don't know, the right word is probably anal, but but I'm very specific on where all things go and how I transition through.
I'm the
I
same.
think
Yeah.
one of the big things, though, I think it's really important. People, apparently your IQ goes down quite a bit when you go into an airport. And I don't mean that I mean that as a joke, but I also mean it seriously. Like people are flustered when they get to the airport. And sometimes they take it out on other people, like they take it out on other flyers, but they also always take it out on the people that are checking them in and everything like that. Remember to be human. I know this is not about this. We want to talk about gear, but just remember to be human, because they actually, if you're nice to them, they're actually going to be better at doing what you want them to do anyway. Conflict actually in those particular instances always slows you down and always makes it harder. So get rid of all conflict and even I had a big schedule change last week, and I had to call them, and he's like, you're the calmest, nicest person I've ever had on the phone. And I'm like, well, no, you work better for me when you're happy. You don't want, and to be like, wow, that's odd to be that most of his calls are not nice. is crazy. But yeah, just try to be as nice as possible, because it helps your gear. It helps you get through. It helps you get your ticket in order and you checked in well. It helps get your luggage off so you don't have to worry about it anymore. Leave the conflict in the car.
Yeah, because there's very few arguments you'll win at an airport, like especially with security, like if they want to search your stuff, they're going to search your stuff. Like you don't.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So let them.
Yeah. And having a routine is good. Like for me, what I do is I always, it's usually I'm a 2-bin, 3 groups of stuff. Like that's generally how I work, but I always keep track how many bins and how many groups of stuff. So if things are in their cubes, I know 3. So laptop, camera stuff, and then like, microphones or whatever. And I like, okay, 3. So if I get to the end of the line, I'm through security. I'm like, do I have all those things? Like you said, if you get out of routine, sometimes then I really slow down, because I'm kind of recounting everything. But
that's right.
But it just helps, like to have the routine. And I don't know, people do get very nervous, and I'm like, well, it's kind of like riding a bus. Like really, it's not so much different. Like you buy a ticket, you show up a couple, earlier for a plane, obviously, but they search your stuff, which, they probably don't do on a bus, but okay, it's like one thing. And then you get on the bus or the plane, you go to your place, and then you get your stuff and you go. It's not too much different.
Yeah. So. Yeah. It's a big cylinder that you have to stay a couple hours in, but if you go to a concert, they search your stuff. Yeah. Now, especially now, you know what I mean? Like it's the same type of big experience, and it's not a good, it's not a terrible experience either, but it does cause pressure. So just remember that you're going to feel a little bit, no matter what airport, and I still do this. I've been traveling constantly, and you've been traveling constantly for the last, except of course COVID, but for a decade or 2 for me. And it's still nerve-wracking in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Like it's not as bad as it used to be, but it's still like, okay, I got to get this through. I got to get to the other side. I got to make sure I'm checked in. I got to get my bags. I got to get on the plane. I got to make sure that my reservation is all right and everything. So that I actually like airports, but my worst part of traveling is actually that very beginning part, that getting into the airport. So that's what I think a lot of people struggle with that. Just, they win. So let them win.
It was kind of nice during COVID where like you had to give space in security so that everyone would kind of go through by themselves. I love that because, it's hard when you're rushed, because I'm always worried I'm going to drop something or they're going to drop something. So I'm a little more cautious with my stuff. And most people are just like, they don't have as much stuff as I do, like when it comes to like electronics and stuff. So they're just like, smashing the bins together. And I'm like, oh god, wait.
Yeah, and you definitely have to watch the security people. You have to pay attention to them, but you do have to pay attention to your fellow passengers, because things go missing every once in a while. So but it's super rare. So I don't in a way I don't like talking about it, because I don't want to scare anybody out there that is traveling, like, oh my god, I gotta watch. But you just have to watch. You just kind of, it's street sense type of thing, right? You just got to have a little bit of street sense, and don't leave your shit for a whole bunch of time, and get through the process.
Yeah, it's it's definitely the worst part of, I think, airplane travel is just going through security. That's probably the worst of it. And it's funny that when you pick up your luggage, most airports, like, they don't, there's no check, nothing. Anyone can just run off with your bags.
Isn't that bizarre? Isn't that? I find that super bizarre, and everywhere. Like Chicago. I was in Chicago, and I was like, okay, I actually have to go to the washroom before I get my luggage, and so I was the last person there, because I got behind somebody too, and I was the last person there, and my luggage was just going around and around, and there was no one around. Yeah. I'm like, this is like, that. Wow. Yo, I don't either. I don't understand.
It's so weird.
And it's, in a way, it's the least secure place at the airport too, because people can come and see their families and welcome them and everything like that where you get your bags. So it's actually the least secure place. Now we're giving hints, I guess. Maybe we should.
Yeah. I'd love to see a statistic on how many bags get stolen from there. Maybe it's just not that many, and but it's not zero. There's no way that nobody's just
that's right. That's
into an airport and just taken off, I guess. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah. I mean, I've had things stolen out of my checked luggage, so I've had that happen before. I'm wondering if you've had that, if you worry about that when you're checking in the miniatures or anything like that. Any of the stuff you travel with?
Yeah, I've had stuff taken from my bag. Bangkok, actually. I've had stuff taken from my my place, my main luggage in Bangkok. It doesn't happen, again, very rare for the amount of times I've traveled. Mm-hmm. It hasn't really been an issue, but yeah, for sure, it is a thing too. It is, and they have the funny thing about that one is that it could be someone stealing, but it could also be someone not putting your stuff back in the bag after they're searching it, because every once in a while you do get your luggage searched when it's going through wherever, right?
Yeah. So yeah. I had that in Buenos Aires once, where the lady at the checkout, I'll never forget, she was adamant that I check in. I had a smaller camera. It wasn't my bigger camera. She was very adamant that I check that into my luggage. And I was like, well, it has a battery. This was a long time ago. Not that long ago. It was like about 8 years ago. And she was like, you have to check it. And I was like, well, it's got a battery. And she was like, no, you have to check it. That and something else. I think I had a small, I don't remember, some kind of electronic or something. And sure enough, those were stolen. It looked like someone had just done this through my luggage, because I was missing socks and shirts and stuff.
Oh no.
But part of me is I wonder if that's part of a thing that she had, it was part of a setup, because she was very adamant that I checked it in. I've never had that before, but it was gone. And so now I've had people say, hey, you should check, this or that. I'm like, no, it's no,
it's not. It's
not worth it. Yeah. That was the only time. So I know if I do have to check anything valuable, or not even anything valuable, but I figure when it goes to an X-ray, any electronics, even if it's an electric toothbrush or something, I put it as far away from the zippers as I can, so that someone would have would take longer.
Have a hard time. Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. It's funny that you have to do that, because like I said, I mean, when they do check your luggage, or when they go in and snoop in your luggage, it's completely apparent.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't, even if you just threw all your shit in there, I make sure that it's fairly organized. My socks are there, my gaunch are there, or whatever. But so I know if someone's been in my bag, because it's just how I pack. But even if you just threw all your stuff in there, I think you would still know, because they literally just.
Oh yeah.
and then put it all back. And how much stuff gets lost? That's what I mean. Like how many pairs of socks does the airport end up with at the end of the year from searching people's bags?
Yeah, and they have that place, I think it's in Georgia, where all the lost luggage, at least in the US, goes. And you can
Right.
actually go there and shop. Like it's like a big
Oh,
thrift
really?
store.
I didn't know that. That's
It's a
interesting.
massive, like it's like I guess a thrift store, but it's huge. I mean, it's like a warehouse. And you can shop. So I
Cool.
guess if somebody doesn't claim it within certain amount of time, that's where it all goes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it like one of those storage locker buys that where you don't really know what's in it? So you just buy a random piece of luggage and then you get whatever's inside it? Is that how they do it?
So there's two ways. If you go to the actual store, you can go through like they have like a clothing section. So you can go through and see shirts and pants and stuff.
Wow.
And then online also they have I think it's through third parties that you can buy, and they just sell like a suitcase. So like
Wow.
it's just like a suitcase of stuff. So it'll say like clothes and whatever, but you don't know what you're gonna get.
That's awesome. That is really cool. That's just like those storage locker things. That's really cool. That's fun.
I gotta make a trip down there. I've really wanted to do that for a long time and just see like,
yeah.
I mean, it's huge. I've seen, videos of it and stuff.
Wow, that is exciting. I've been to Georgia. Next time I'll have to go and take a look at it. That sounds awesome.
It's kind of wild that that's legal too, that the airlines are just like, all right, we couldn't find you. Whoops. They just
That's all right. We're selling your stuff. I guess if you're not, because people probably walk away from that kind of stuff. I mean, I would never do that, but there's probably people that just are like, it's just not worth it. I can just go buy all that stuff somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like, yes.
Yeah, I think my parents had one mixed up. So they got to their destination and there were like these very like elaborate, they were like costumes of like, they were like, we don't even know what part of the world it was from, but it was definitely not their luggage. And so they got in touch with the airline and they got $500. And they were like, yeah, all right.
All right. That's right.
That's a fair trade. Why, they couldn't find their luggage. So they were just like, all right, we'll take the money and,
right. And then just go buy whatever you need, right?
Yeah. Is there a specific backpack or luggage that you use, or brand?
Yeah, I do have a custom one. I think it's really important. Backpacks are really, I'm glad you mentioned that because this is one of the things that I was going to mention. It's not any particular brand. It's I forget who made it, but it's kind of custom. You can put different pockets on it and kind of exchange things. And it has a belt. I really make sure that you get a backpack that is solid on your shoulders, that's balanced, and that the best is to have a belt, a backpack with a belt, because you can really throw yourself out, and it sucks when you get hurt on a trip and it's your own fault. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And so just make sure you have a good solid backpack that has again, pockets. I'm a big fan of pockets, but also just has the ability to really snug yourself in, because as soon as you get it so it fits you, you can put a lot more weight in it and not hurt yourself, but also not have it so it's moving, and that moving really tires you out. So
yeah, a good backpack and luggage too is really worth the investment. I mean, like the difference between, you can find a good bag for $100, but the difference between like $100 and a $250 bag is just massive.
Yeah,
like that better bag will last you so much longer.
It's that whole thing about boots, right? You buy the shitty boots, you have to buy them again next year, but buy the good boots, you don't have to worry about it for 10 years. Yeah. Actually, another thing about luggage, and because it ties into what we were just talking about, is I never lock my luggage when I check it, because I know they're just going to break it if they're going to want to get in it.
Yeah, same. I never lock it. I mean,
yeah. So don't lock your stuff is my advice. Just make sure you're carrying everything that's valuable and accept the fact that something might go missing.
Yeah.
Because they're going to break your
they're going to get in there if they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I recently changed my luggage. I haven't used the new one yet on a trip. And I was using a 60-liter Osprey bag, which I've had for like 13, 14 years or so. I mean, it's a great bag. Like I treat it terribly. Like I mean, at this, it's like, especially the last couple of years, like, you don't care. It's been in downpours and tossed around airports and stuff, and it's still great. It's a great bag, but I have to pack it perfectly to get all my things in there right. And so I got a much bigger bag now just because I'm lazy. I want to be able to, like, if I want to, just throw stuff into a bag. So now I have this same amount of stuff, but this massive bag, and it's 85 liters, which is pretty big for luggage.
Yeah, that's big. Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't know. It was like, I got a 70-liter one to test it, and I was like, this is bigger, but not that much bigger. I still have to think when I pack. So I don't know how I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give this one a couple of trips and see if it's too big. But for check luggage, I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well use all the space, and you might as well use all the weight too. I actually usually just top it up. I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I need a couple more pairs of socks then, or whatever. I make sure that I have, as a gamer and as a geek going to conventions, I often bring a bag within a bag. So I go down with one and then come back with two, because you're always buying stuff wherever you go if you're a geek, right? So if you're going to a convention, like whatever convention, Star Trek convention or board game conventions, especially because board games are bulky, I always recommend two suitcases, and just take one with it. Yeah, just take one within the other one, and that really helps with your. I mean, if you want to have a limit on how much you want to buy, that's a good way to do that, because you're like, okay, I only got 6 pounds, so that's all I can buy. But if you're like, no, I want to go and have some fun and not worry about my shopping habits, then do it. Yeah, bag within a bag is always a good idea, for sure.
Do you have so is it usually, do you travel with 2 suitcases and then 1 backpack? Is that the usual?
Yeah, I try. Lately, I've actually forego the backpack in a lot of ways. I took it for a long time. If I go far internationally, like if I'm going to Japan, I'll bring my backpack, because a lot of times in Japan, I don't know if this happens to you or not, but did you, in Japan, you can send your bags places. So for instance, if you're in Tokyo and you want to be in Kyoto, you can get the hotel to send your bag to their next hotel.
Oh,
so yeah, it's really super handy. And you can do it also to the airport. Like, it's super handy. So if you're carrying a lot of stuff, a lot of bags, you can just say, send all this stuff. I'm going to carry my night bag in. Like, I did it for Himeji, so the big castle. We spent a night I think we spent a night in Himeji. And so I said, send my bags to Kyoto, and I'll just take a day bag, my backpack, to Himeji, and then get my bags at the next hotel. So yeah, so I do a backpack then, but then I do like a satchel or a man bag or a purse or whatever. This thing.
Oh yeah, like a messenger bag kind of. Yeah,
messenger bag. Yeah, these things. This is I take this everywhere I go. I really like to be light in what I carry on, but that is a big deal. That bag, I take that no matter where I go. So a backpack is, what's great about that is that it's also considered like a purse. So it's actually not counted as a carry-on.
Oh, okay. So
right?
It's like the personal item, they call it, right? Yeah.
That's right. So you can put your laptop in there or whatever. So yeah, take advantage of that, especially guys, because guys don't carry a purse every once in a while. You know what I mean? But you should carry your purse when you're going on the plane, because it helps.
It definitely helps. Yeah. I have one backpack, like the main one for my main gear, and then I have a smaller one which is like a day pack. So when I'm at the place, if I just need my camera out for that day, like I'll put it in that smaller one instead of the larger one. but I always have a jacket when I travel, like
Mhm.
on me when I'm going through the airport and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's mainly just to have more pockets, just to have
More pockets.
more pockets because yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so is there something that you travel with that you're like, this is kind of weird, or it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
efficient, or it doesn't make sense to travel with? I have
Oh
one.
yeah, there's lots.
Yeah.
One thing is a bar of soap. I
Okay.
I hate liquid soap, so I always bring myself a bar.
I do that
Um,
too. I do
do
that
you?
too. I have my soap, and I always travel with my wife, like that one soap. I have it everywhere.
So I don't know. I don't like liquid soap, and I just think that it's probably inefficient because you can deal with whatever you have at whatever hotel you have normally. Sometimes
Yeah.
hotels don't have that, right? So that helps when you're in hotels so that don't happen to have that. But yeah, I always bring my bar soap.
All right. Yeah, that's good. See, I do it too. So it's not that.
Yeah, it's not that weird.
And I'll
We're
buy like a
brothers
bunch
up
of
in
it.
our soap brothers. What's
I'll
that?
buy like a bunch of it too. So like if I'm gonna be gone for a while, like so that I have it. And people are like, do you need to travel with all that soap? I'm like, hey, I don't want to run out. It's hard to find.
That's
You know?
right. Exactly.
I'll do that with
Yeah,
shampoo too. I gotta be
yeah,
honest. Like I'll bring
yeah.
shampoo as well because you never know. Like you say, you
Yeah,
never know what you're gonna get at a hotel, and so
absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? Shampoo is really good because you can use it to wash your clothes too if you need to.
yes,
Right.
yeah,
So that's shampoo is a good one to make sure that you bring. Um, I do talk all cosmetic stuff. I do bring a brush because my hair is long, so I have a brush. And I brush my hair in the shower, so I make sure that it's a small brush that can deal with with water. Um, but yeah, my wife says my carry on my toiletries bag is way too heavy, but there's so much shit in there, it's unbelievable. Like, and painkillers is a good example. I got prescriptions, of course, right? Um, Gum. You know what I also bring is chapsticks, a lip gloss,
yeah.
because I always find that I don't drink enough or it's really super dry wherever I am or something. I always have chapped lips when I travel, so I always use chapstick. Um,
I'm on.
well,
I do
that's
that too. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah,
yeah, that's funny because it's because it just happens constantly, right?
yeah.
Uh, what's another? Oh, I have a little screwdriver for my glasses, and that saved a lot of people. Like, oh my god, my glasses are apart. I'm like, oh, here, just give them to me and I'll fix them. So I've saved a lot of people with my screwdrivers. What else? Gum, breath mints.
Yeah,
I bring
I
that.
I sometimes will forget that, and then I'll during a flight I'll go to the flight attendant. Hey, do you guys have breath mints? And almost they never have it, and I'm like, you would
Yeah.
think a plane like airplanes would just have that because it seems
Yeah.
like everyone has bad breath on the plane. Like, they never
Well,
have it. It's like,
well, I mean, you often fall asleep,
yeah,
so you wake up with morning breath basically on the plane, and everybody's like, "Whoa, man, brother!" So-
I think it's like British Airway. I think they have like these two little mints. They're like so small, but they're like
right.
extremely powerful. And I was like, oh, this is great. I need to find where they sell those. But yeah, it's really
That's
weird that
right.
they don't have that on like every plane as something that
Yeah,
people should.
absolutely. Yeah, it would help the person next to you. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, so absolutely. A hand sanitizer I bring now, and of course masks because you never know when any restrictions might come in too. Like you don't have to bring a lot now, but
Yeah.
because you probably would know before you get on a plane. But for the longest time, like Canada, we're like one of the last airlines that got rid of the masking in Canada. So that's one of the things. I really like. I bring some band-aids, but I usually bring the ones that have a little bit of polysporin on them.
Hmm.
You can buy band-aids that have like that polysporin like included in the band-aid. And I really like those band-aids because I think they really work really well. But if you find that you get nicked or something somewhere where you're like kind of worried about, you know, whether it's going to heal right. Make sure you just wash it out really good and slap one of those band-aids on, and then you're golden. So that's one of the things that I always recommend too.
Yeah, that's a good idea, especially if you're working with, like, if you're, doing modeling or, working with stuff like those small razor blades and things that can easily cut your,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I also bring my iPad no matter where I go. Also, my iPad saved my sanity so many times. Like if you're delayed, for 4 hours or something like that, you really should have something. And you could do it with your phone. I just find my iPad is just so much nicer to be able to watch a movie or something like that, or to read. I don't usually bring books anymore. I used to bring like a couple books, especially if it was a long trip, just to have like a choice or whatever. But now I just read everything on my iPad. So
same.
Yeah, books are so heavy.
Super heavy.
Wow. That's one of the things.
And you use it you read it once and then it's like dead weight, right? Like
that's
kinda,
right.
It's just like
exactly. Yeah. And you can bring a whole library with you if you bring your iPad or your Kobo.
It's amazing. Right? That I read I read a lot, but especially when I'm on a plane, I'm like, oh great, 8 hours, no internet. I can just read like a bunch. But it's so great that you can switch through different books. I mean, it's one of my favorite things to use for the iPad.
Yeah. Is that what do you read with your iPad, or do you have a Kobo? Or
so I used to carry like a separate, like a Nook, I guess, from Barnes and Noble made them. And then I just eventually switched over to just using the iPad so that I wouldn't have an extra electronic to carry.
Yeah.
I don't like reading on the iPad as much. The screen is bright. It's not as, nice. And I have
get that glare every once in a while. Yeah.
And I've also read that when you're reading on screens that your brain doesn't retain it as well. I don't know if that's...
Oh, really?
I've read that like when you're looking at reading from a screen, your brain isn't as engaged for whatever reason. So
that's really interesting.
And so they're doing studies on things like Kindles and stuff, but they find that the same is true. So there's something about the physical, it not being reflective, but also you having to turn like physically the pages and stuff. So there's something to that. So it's a trade-off I'm willing to make, especially when traveling. But I do, so I just have the iPad, and I even tried out the mini iPad for a while. I went back to the bigger one, but the mini one was great. Like it's so much smaller and lighter and stuff.
And I get it. If that's true about reading, I understand, because I actually really do love books. Like I love having a book in my hand, the physical presence of a book and everything like that. But I do sacrifice that for when I travel. I just say, no, I'm not going to do that.
But I do always have a pen and paper. Like I always have a notebook and pen and paper. Like I've tried to go just digital with that, like using the Apple Pencil. And it's just not the same for me. Like I need like to take notes. Like so.
Oh, that's really interesting.
So that's probably something that's a little inefficient, I guess. It's not.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, that's like old school.
Old school, yeah.
Old school. I get it. I usually use the app Goodreader on my iPad. And so they are PDFs, so you can actually make notes in there. But yeah, it's a different experience. I can understand why they would say that you don't feel as engaged, because I think that's true actually for myself. I feel like I get a deeper read with a book, but you can, like, when I'm DMing, I'll have those notes. I'll have the physical book. But and this is just not traveling. This is just doing gaming at a particular place. So not traveling, but I'd have the physical book, but I also have the PDF, and note taking on the PDF is actually kind of nice because then you can not have to screw with your book too. But I don't. I write notes on books, so some people would be like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" So I totally get what you're saying. So
I think probably like I go through about in January, like a lot of people who have been asking me about gear this month, I go through and I try to see what I can reduce, like how I can travel more efficiently.
Right.
There's not a whole lot of change. You know,
No.
like I kind of have it mostly down. And then if I do get rid of something, I almost invariably now add stuff. So like I'll just
Yeah, that's right.
I'll fill up that space somehow.
Well, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you might as well fill up. You might as well have it to the right weight, because I mean you're paying for it anyway, right? So,
Yeah.
but I always feel like I'm gonna, especially my carry-on. You know, I've got my clippers, I've got my nail file, I've got my cuticle thing, I've got things that are like, okay, well, you don't usually, even when you're not traveling, you don't use a nail clipper every day,
Yeah.
right? You might use it like once a week or whatever, or once every 2 weeks even. But if I don't have my nail clipper when I'm at a place, I feel like, okay, now what am I going to do if I need to cut my nails? So
Yeah.
I think nail clippers are really great because you can use it to remove skin, or like help yourself. Like if you get another, again, I talk about like getting clipped or whatever. If you have a wound and you're in somewhere that's warm and humid, like Thailand or whatever,
Mhm.
or Cambodia or whatever, and you get a scratch, you want to make sure you clean up that wound as best you can so you don't get the dirt in there. So I often use my clippers, nail clippers, to trim the skin off
Mhm. Mhm.
of a wound. You know what I mean? So you can clean it a little bit better, and then of course put something on top of it. But that nail clippers, you gotta. I think that's one of the things about traveling is you gotta use the stuff that you have innovatively. You gotta be creative on what you've got.
Yeah.
Right.
And the rule is, right, like you can't bring everything, you know, like don't.
That's right.
I always tell people, like, whether you're traveling for 2 years or 2 months, just pack 2 weeks worth of stuff, more or less 2 weeks worth of stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that'll get you, you know, and if you need something, most places you can find, you know, your
Yeah.
toothpaste. And a lot of people get, you know, I have forgot my tooth. It's all right. They have toothpaste pretty much everywhere in the world. You'll
That's right.
find it. Like, don't worry
You
about
can
it, you
find
know?
something.
So
It might not be your special sparkly kind, but it'll do the job.
yeah.
So I one thing like I do about that is I do bring dental floss,
Mhm.
because I have, my back teeth have pretty big gaps in them, so I always need dental floss. But once I didn't have dental floss, and I remember I'm like, damn it, now I got to go out and buy some dental floss. And I had to find like a convenience store or whatever, and but they almost have a convenience store wherever you go now anyway, right?
Yeah,
Like
pretty
I
much
don't think
everywhere.
this I don't think I've ever been to a place now, like in the last 10 years for sure, maybe 20 years, that there's not a convenience store somewhere near where you're staying.
Oh yeah, yeah. You'll find most of the basics everywhere, and probably
Yeah.
at a markup. They'll love to sell you, you know, if you're
Oh yeah,
feeling
that's
like,
right.
you know, like I was in Belize last year, and I didn't bring sunscreen. I was like, I figured they'll have it there. It'll be expensive, but whatever. And of
Yeah,
course, they
yeah.
had like a billion different types of sunscreen because it's, you
Right.
know, it's hot, you
It's
know.
it's hot.
So like, yeah. So they have everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think probably for me the thing that I'm most excited about is getting rid of. I had a big mic stand to like have a thing that I didn't
Right.
use much while traveling, but it was still something. But now I've got a different microphone that hopefully is good enough to where I don't need the mic stand. So that's a little bit of weight down.
Right.
And probably the last thing that I carry that just doesn't pack efficiently is a jujitsu gi. So I usually like will train wherever I am, you know, different
Right.
schools around the world. But the thing
Right.
is like so like huge and just thick, you know, because it's pulled on and stuff like that.
Right. Right.
It's the
Right.
worst thing ever to travel with. It's like you can't shrink it, you can't packing cube it.
Right.
It's just
Right.
so
Is that one of the things that people are like that? I mean, that's a quote unquote strange thing. Do you get anybody commenting on that at all when you're going
uh I
through
I
lessons or whatever?
I haven't yet. No, nobody's said anything. But people do find it strange. Like, do you actually go to other schools and travel. Like, oh yeah, it's a great way to meet people.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, like go locally. So I do use it,
Yep.
but it's just kind of a weird like thing to have. So I have had people where I have had a security, now that you mention it, where they take the ear guards out. So I wear the ear guards, and they're like, what is this? And they're like, they think they're like, is that it's not a cup, or it's not. It's like, no, it's here, it goes here, and you know, da da da. And then they go, oh, okay. And then they think I'm some cool fighter, which I'm not. But
No,
they're
that's
just
right.
it's like, you're in the UFC. I'm like, no.
No, no.
But you can
That's
think
not.
that. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, about clubs. I mean, that's something that's really true. Is that if you have a hobby, and I mean, my miniatures are a good example of that. And like we were talking before, use that. And if somebody has questions about it when you're traveling, like a security person, engage them. You know, engage them and tell them what it is, and they'll appreciate you treating them like a human being in the first place. But also do go to clubs for sure. Like I'll go to if I'm in the UK or something like that, I'll go to a game store or whatever and hang out and talk to people or whatever. But those clubs are definitely inroads to traveling well.
Yeah.
Because you can, you know, so someone might say, hey, why don't you want to come I know a good place for lunch down the street. Why don't you go there? Or why don't we go there? You know, that'll happen. So
yeah,
those engagements are always fun.
Yeah. And it's like, there's kind of a familiarity, right? So like you have this thing in common, and then you just kind of jump right in. It really is a good way. Like no matter what you're into. I mean, it's such a good way, especially when you're traveling. So I guess as we wrap things up, where are you headed next? What are your travels looking like?
I've got Adepticon, which is a miniature wargaming convention in Chicago. That's in March. That one's sold out. That tour sold out, so that's kind of nice. I closed it just recently. Looking forward to doing that convention scene. It'll be an interesting place. Interesting because this is the second year out of COVID, so it'll be full on this year. Like last year was busy. Don't get me wrong, but it was not as busy as it could have been. So I think this year it'll be busy. I also am going to Gen Con, which is also my tour is sold out. That's in Indianapolis, and I am looking forward to that. And again, that's a big board gaming convention. And before before COVID, there was like, I think their gate was 67,000 people. So it's like a really big convention.
Wow.
So I'll be interested to see how busy that one is. And then lastly, I've got two possibilities. So I've got my UK one that I was mentioning. So that is another miniature wargaming one. We go to the Bovington Tank Museum, go see Tank Fest. So that's when they drive tanks around and everything. Like they actually have them moving and everything like that.
Such a cool.
So that's fun. Yeah, Tank Fest. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. And then we go to Oxford and do a tour through Oxford, like a Lord of the Rings type of tour. So that's kind of cool. And then we go to Nottingham. It's really a great, if you're into miniature wargaming, it's a great tour. I've got a few spots for that one. And then the last one in the year is, I'm not sure if it's going to go yet, but it's to Wasteland Weekend. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh yeah, I remember from the last time. Yeah, we spoke.
Yeah,
I looked it up after that.
Time. Yeah,
and I was like,
it's crazy, man. Yeah, did we talk? Have I already went to Neotropolis before, or was I about to go?
I forget. I don't think so. I don't think it was last August.
Yeah. Okay. So Neotropolis is their cyberpunk version of so Wasteland Weekends. So those guys who haven't heard, Wasteland Weekend is a Mad Max X festival where everybody has to dress up, and it's like you're on the set of Mad Max. It's in the Mojave Desert in California. So it's got this huge vibe, and you feel like you're like in Mad Max land in all the good ways, no, none of the bad ways. Like nobody actually has radioactive poisoning or can't drink water or anything
Good.
like
Yeah.
that. It's really fun. But I took my daughter to the same crew has a new one in April called Neotropolis, and it's a cyberpunk one. And that was a really good time. I didn't know what to dress up as first because everybody has mohawks or
Mhm.
piercings or whatever, and so I decided to go as a business a corporate thug. So I had my business suit on in the desert, and it was really great because I was the odd person out. Like everybody was like, "Oh, this guy," and they have all mohawks and everything, and so I was the weirdo at that particular thing. So that was fun. That was a good one too. So, but yeah, Wasteland Weekend. I hopefully goes this fall. So only those ones. So
And
good.
that's in
I think that's
July.
good. That one is in September or October. That one.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So that was late. So I've got March is Adepticon. June is UK. August is Gen Con, and then that one is September. I'm pretty sure it's in September. And
Okay.
what about yourself? Are you headed anywhere cool this year?
So right now I'm trying to decide, like, I want to finish off trying to go to all the countries. It was kind of my original goal when I started. Central America is really high on my list. I have just a couple there, or the Caribbean, because like
Oh,
literally just a couple of places there. So I might do one or the other, and then slowly about May make my way toward Asia slowly. But that's kind of the short list right now.
yeah, it's the Caribbean is you really have a lot of different countries in the Caribbean, and same with the Central America. Uh, Definitely, you can find some expensive places to go and some cheap places to go. You think you have to watch your budget a lot in the Caribbean.
Yeah, I'm
That,
kind of weird. I like winter, so like I wait till the summer to go to those kind of places because
oh,
I like
nice.
it cold. I like snow and
Yeah, yeah,
skiing and stuff. I haven't. It's
yeah.
been I haven't skied yet this year, but I'll find somewhere to do that. So I like to experience the winter. Maybe probably most people don't, but I'm like, I'll save the
Yeah,
warm places for.
you and I both carry soap, and we both love winter. So there we go. We have something
Awesome.
else in common too. No, I love the winter. I would never go. Like people leave at during the holiday season over Christmas and all the other holidays during that time of year. But I would never leave at that time of year. I love full on winter and that feeling of a fireplace and a book and hanging out with friends and but I mean we have it's what is it? I think it's 2 degrees Celsius right now outside, and I'm like, it's too warm.
Too warm.
Where's my snow?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I love winter too. That's cool that you do it. That's interesting. So yeah, that'll be great. I would imagine Central America is pretty warm in the summer.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, last year, like when I was, I guess, Belize and Guatemala, and it was, it was pretty hot. I mean, it was just hot. I think it was like April, so just at the start of their season, but it was 110,
It was hot.
I mean, like 40 Celsius or so, and
Oh
like
yeah, that's
80,
yeah,
90% humidity.
yeah,
It was
that's pretty wild.
intense.
Yeah, we go to Huatulco every once in a while in Oaxaca in Mexico, and their hottest month of the year is May.
Hmm.
So that don't be fooled about that springtime what we think is spring. That could be really super hot down
Yeah.
south. So.
I have a limited time for that, then I'm like, I need somewhere a little bit cooler. So
Yeah, every once in a while, I'm gonna go visit the mountains.
yeah, people are
Wherever
like,
you
what?
are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Wherever I am. Awesome. That's
Cool. Well,
very
thanks
cool.
for taking the time to chat
Yeah,
again today. It was really fun talking about
yeah,
gear and just
yeah. Thank
places,
you.
and um, hopefully best city contest for those of you listening that's happening this year after the hiatus due to the pandemic, since nobody could really travel. So hopefully, yeah, we'll chat again maybe
Sure, yeah,
during that time.
I'll definitely show up. That'll be nice to hang out a little bit
It's like
and
sports
to you.
talk, but for travel. It's kind of
Travel, yeah. It's interesting how do you have just various people come on and talk about their experiences in cities, or like what's the format?
Yeah, so this year it'll be new. So in the past, it's been all through my site. So I've had people like just voting through the site, and we've not really had a discussion component to it. People have been saying, "Hey, one, you should," I guess a little sneak peek, but one, we'll have like talking about the brackets and what people voted for, and that.
Nice.
So that'll be new this year because people have been asking me that for years. And two, we'll probably do some kind of pool. So like you can, once the bracket is complete, people can complete their own brackets. And if whoever wins, gets closest will win something, like so they can play along
Nice.
too. Because only 64 cities. So, most people don't get to enter a city.
Right.
But yeah, the discussions, like we've had like live chats, but never just like a full on like live, like a discussion like this. And,
Cool.
yeah, so the city that nobody ever thinks is going to win wins usually. So
really?
It'll be interesting. Nobody's been able to guess it so far.
That's awesome. Well,
And,
there's some great places out there.
Yeah, and it determines where I go. So I will visit the city before the end of the year, whichever one wins. So.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Fun.
That's such a smart thing to do. That's cool. I love that.
We'll see what people come up with, and yeah, it will be fun to talk about and dissect what the matchups are and see.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
Where I might be going.
That's super exciting. Cool. That's awesome.
Well, thanks again. Take care.
Thank you.
We'll chat again soon, and happy travels in between then if you're traveling before we chat again next time.
Absolutely. Nice to see you.
Thanks very much for watching this episode of the foXnoMad podcast. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons down below so you don't miss any upcoming videos, and I'll see you in the next one.